The last topic before we get into the patient scenarios is all about communication and collaboration. And this will be short and sweet, which is one of my favorite communication styles, and to the point. We've all experienced situations where communication can get complicated. It seems like everyone's talking over each other or all at once or not at all. And this could be detrimental in those critical moments. As we try to explore some of the strategies here in the next few slides about enhancing that communication and collaboration during those crucial events for our patients. So there's 4 aspects to good communication, especially during those cardiac arrest or emergent events. And the first, like we've seen with any um, American Heart Association video on ACLS or BLS like that, is using closed loop communication. So when someone says, I'm going to do CPR for 2 minutes, you repeat back, you are doing CPR for 2 minutes. This helps to make sure that everyone's on the same page. Clarification questions are very easily identified off of this. And this is very important when the stakes are high for your patient. And the next is to be an active participant. And it's not just to talk, but you need to be able to add value. And if no one's speaking up in a situation, or no one's saying the right things, this is your time to step up for that patient, be that proactive person for that patient that puts the patient's needs first. Thirdly, active listening, which we just talked about in our last one. This is the superpower that we covered in the previous lesson, but this is how you add value to the conversation. I don't know how many times in a critical event, just because of active listening and using closed loop communication and being an active participant, I've helped clarify and identify certain aspects that have made the clinical decision process easier for everybody in there as we're collaborating to save this patient's life. And fourth, you need to discover your communication style. Mine during a code situation is very direct, closed loop, and it's going to be the one that's not yelling or anything. It has a little bit of that Teddy Roosevelt type of mentality where you speak softly so that people will listen. And you speak in not like under your breath or anything like that, but you speak in a way that has people listen to you. So just being calm and collected and speaking at a tone and a cadence that has people listen and actually listen to you will do nothing but help the patient in those situations. But you need to figure out whether you're the type of person and you can kind of do some own self-discovery in what your best communication style is in those situations and really try to find one that suits who you are. I'm more of a reserved person, so that communication style fits for me. People that are a little more upbeat and up tempo can find one that fits them in those situations. And just as important as the communication is the collaboration. And in a joint effort that involves the active involvement of multiple individuals, and that's what these cardiac arrest and code blues and rapid responses are. There's not just you and the patient in the room. There's you plus everybody else in that room too. So it is important that it is to understand that it is a dynamic process that requires the contribution and engagement of each participant. And this is where you need to understand where there are active participants and who are actively being effective and efficient in that code. And then there's the people that are not adding any value, and they don't need to be there, because the more people in a room isn't going to help save your patient. You need active participants and people that are going to provide that collaboration for that patient. You need to make sure that you're all going in the same direction. I don't know how many times I've seen codes that I've gone to as a charge nurse on other units And there's people doing so many different things that there were more than one person documenting the code that was happening. There's one person writing on a piece of paper, one person doing it in the chart, and there's another person writing on the board. We had 3 people doing all the same thing. So they're all going in a different direction, and that wasn't the best use for the resources that patient needed. So making sure that you have that clear closed loop communication and assigning roles and saying, this is what you need to do, this is what you're going to do, this is what you're going to do, so that everyone is collaborating and being on the same page and going in the same direction for that patient. So if you recall the instance of the patient scenario from a few lessons ago about there's no legs to stand on, and like how I said that the intensivist on that unit talked to me about my communication to the pharmacist and getting the urgency for the need of that medication to raise that patient's blood pressure to get the perfusion. Now, this is where my direct and closed loop and emphasizing what is important and getting the person to respond back to me in a closed loop communication style was where I defined that for myself. And that's where I discovered it and did a little more research on it afterwards to make myself better in those instances. But like I've said, and all of these things build up and they kind of all go together. You have to reflect on your situations. You have to lay the foundation and be prepared and know what you're going to say, how you're going to do things, and go through this. And I did this a lot through visualization. I visualized myself being the person who runs the code, being the person who's on the other end of the person leading the code to understand how my communication works through all that and how the collaboration and my first experience with code is what got me into nursing. I saw this perfectly cohesive group saving a patient's life that seemed like they're not talking at all, but they were. They were just being effective and efficient about what they were saying and what they were doing. And that is the symphony and the orchestra, the beauty of what we do in these situations for the patient. I have 2 recommendations, especially for the communication and collaboration, and that is to practice that closed loop communication so that it becomes second nature, and figure out what type of communication style is best for you, the pros, the cons, how to improve it, how it works with the other communication styles that may be out there. And you can find a multitude of different people through Google or whatever that tell you about communication styles, and they're all going to be um, relatively the same no matter what you call them. Um, and the second one is to just, I mean, it's simply practice collaboration, but to reflect on how it has gone and put that to the 2 E's, the effective and efficient, and understand what what is like actually working or not working, so that you can tell yourself what it is. You can tell your coworkers what's working, not working, and you guys can make a change together and be put into that same direction for that patient. And really, as these lessons are finalizing up and we get into the next section, this is where we're going to start our virtual experience practice with these scenarios that are in here. But it's, you just need to practice communicating, collaborating, reflecting, visualizing, all these key skills that build onto the analytical thinking, the critical thinking, the decision making, to make you more efficient and effective during these situations. This is where you lay the foundation. This is where you become prepared for what is to come. And we're going to get into that here, these patient scenarios.